Hello everyone. So I know it's been a while, but that's because the ALGS off season was honestly just extremely boring. But now that ALGS is back, I'll be posting more consistently again. I'm hoping for 2-ish videos a month. But anyway, in today's video, we're going to be discussing my North American Pro League predictions for Split 1. We're going to go through the rationale of each of my placements, so let's get into it. Let's just get the LAN winning potential tier out of the way with DZ and TSM. They're quite literally the only teams in Apex history that have shown the ability to win a LAN. Even though there are other teams that have the talent to win LAN, somehow nobody else can execute when it matters most, so these guys are the only ones going into this tier. Next up we have Optic. They're a consistently great performing team coming off of a great champs run with plenty of LAN experience. They'll likely be LAN finalists, so I'm going to place them in that tier. DSG, better known as the Dojo, is up next, coming off of 4th at LAN. They haven't played a Pro League split together before, but they're a great team. However, I want to see them be great in a Pro League setting. I think they're going to qualify, so I'm placing them in the likely LAN qualifiers. Next up, we have LG. Now you may see the org LG and think this is Yanya and the boys, but nope. LG is the new home of Sweet's new roster. While Sweet is individually incredibly experienced and has a history as a high performer at LAN, his teammates are relatively inexperienced at the pro level. I'm putting them in potential qualifiers because although I believe in Sweet as a leader, I think it's fair to say his teammates have something to prove, which is why I can't put them any higher. Next up, we have LOL, or League of Legends. I'm pretty sure these guys actually had to change their name because just having the same name as another game probably wouldn't be allowed in ALGS, but that's kind of besides the point. This is the former FaZe roster with Zainu replacing Snipedown. This is a roster that I think has a ton of potential and I can easily see them placing well at LAN. Alright, next up we have Los Pollos Hermanos. This is the former LG roster, and these guys are the definition of consistency. They've made 4 of the last 5 LAN finals since they began playing with each other back in 2022. And the one time they didn't make it to finals, they were just outside the top 20, placing 22nd. In their 4 finals appearances, they have an average placement of 8th, so they can't really go anywhere else but LAN finalists. Next up, we have Oxygen. Oxygen had an impressive 2023 run, but so far in scrims, they haven't really looked the same. I've got confidence that they can make it back to LAN though, so I'm gonna put them in the potential LAN qualifiers tier. Now we've got Sentinels. If I'm being honest, I don't really know about these guys at Sentinels. They've got the experience, but never really put it together in a meaningful way last year, and scrims have been no different. Because of the experience, I can't totally count them out, but it hasn't been looking good so far. I'm gonna place them in the wildcards tier. Next up we have DNO, which is a fan favorite team to watch, with a roster full of players that fans love. However, it can't be denied that these guys have not been performing up to par in scrims. I'm going to place them in the wildcards tier. They were present at champs this year by qualifying through LCQ, but they didn't really place well and they haven't been performing well as of late. Next up, I have Complexity. Genuinely, I have no clue what to expect from them, but if I'm being honest, it isn't much. They're 29th of 30th in overall scrims, but they have missed a couple days, but even then, it's not looking good. I'm just gonna place them in the underdogs tier. Alright, next up we have Xset. Xset is another team that you can count on to make it to LAN. With their new addition of Koifel replacing Sykes, they're primed to return to form as one of the top teams in NA. So because of that, I'm going to place them in the LAN finalists tier. SKRT is a team expected to contest 50% of their games in Pro League. That is just not a recipe for success. Alberlele and company will have trouble with this level of contest. However, I wouldn't totally count them out. CG, or Casual Gaming, with Zera, Panders, and Snipedown is definitely an interesting looking team. A team with a lot of pro experience, but not a lot of recent winning. Snipe was a part of the FaZe team that was successful last year, but other than him, Zera and Panders have not been placing well really at all. At the moment, they're sitting at 26 of 30 in scrims. It's not looking good, I'm not gonna lie. But because of the experience, I'm gonna place them in the wildcards tier. This new look Furia roster, with his Watson returning, has been surprisingly impressive. They sit at 4th overall in scrims at the moment, and I expect them to continue that strong performance into Split 1. So because of that, I'm going to place them in the potential LAN qualifiers tier. They could potentially go up too. Next up we have Flat. This is one of those teams where, if I'm being honest, I don't really know much about them. Only one of their players has ever been to a LAN, and even then it was only back in 2022. They've been decent in scrims, so I'll give them their credit for that, but ultimately this team has a minimal history of Pro League success. Next up we have Secret Formula. They qualified to Pro League through last year's LCQ, but they've been struggling heavily in scrims, sitting at 28 out of 30 teams. The next team we have is Oversleepers. This team qualified through preseason qualifiers and haven't been looking too hot in scrims. They're currently 27th in scrims and have no Pro League experience. It may be a tough split for them, which is expected considering it's their first go at Pro League. Now on to Native. No disrespect to the Native guys, but they haven't really been anything beyond a mid North American team in the past. Maybe their new edition of Rambo will change that, but I'm not so sure, as they sit 20th overall in scrims, but just because of the experience and everything like that, I'm going to place them in the wildcards tier. Next up we have Ape Gang. This is a trio that for the most part, the players have been around the scene for a couple of years now, yet haven't really found real success. 2 of the 3 players have played in Pro League before, yet had uninspiring performances. What has been somewhat inspiring though is their scrim placements as of late. They sit at 13th overall, and I hope they keep that up going into Pro League, but just because they don't really have a history of success, I'm going to place them in the wildcards tier as well. Now moving on to Moist Esports. One of the better rosters in the world seems to have gotten an upgrade, and they have no intentions of slowing down. Last year, they finished 6th, then 7th, then 12th at each LAN, and have made the move from APAC South over to North America with the addition of Guild to the roster, replacing Fussy. I have high hopes for these guys, so I'm placing them in the Land of Finalists tier. GKS is a roster of guys who are seemingly trying to keep their pro relevance alive, and their scrim results have shown that they're not done yet. Chaotic, Naughty, and Saucer are sitting at 12th overall and have plenty of Pro League experience, but will that be enough for them to return the relevancy in the scene? I'm not sure, so because of that, they go in the wildcards tier. Now on to E8. E8 is led by a man who is also trying to return to relevance in the pro scene, Zach Mazer, and E8 have shown the capability to do just that. After dominating week 1 of preseason qualifiers, they now sit at 3rd overall on the scrim leaderboard. I'll give them some respect and put them in potential LAN qualifiers. Meat is honestly another roster that seems to just be middle of the pack. None of their players have been to LAN before, and their scrim performances haven't been particularly inspiring. However, when they're not contesting, they're kind of like an above average team, so because of that, they might have the potential to qualify for LAN if they pop off, so I'm going to move them from the wildcards tier and place them in potential LAN qualifiers. Alright, so next up we have Oblivion. If I'm being honest about Oblivion, I have absolutely zero clue what to expect from these guys. They don't have any Pro League experience, however, they have been placing decent in scrims. They're 14th at the moment. I don't know if that will translate to Pro League though. Because they have been decent in scrims, I'll place them in the wildcard tier. Next up we have Temper. Temper is a roster that's new to the scene, and they have been bad honestly so far, currently sitting at 30th overall in scrims. They were previously contesting heavily though, but they no longer plan to do so in Pro League. Even then, I don't expect much from this roster, so I'm placing them in the underdogs tier. Now we have 9 Lives. 9 Lives is a roster with an extremely small amount of experience, but during the Pro League qualifier weeks, they ran around like they owned the map. They had a lot of explosive games and performances, and I hope that they can continue that through Pro League because they were a great team to watch. But at the moment, I can't put them really any higher than the wildcards tier. Moving on, we're almost at the end. We have third to last team, Drop In Gaming. Dig is a team that I was thoroughly impressed with throughout their preseason qualifier run, and I expect them to show at least a little something this Pro League. They have been alright in scrims, sitting at 18th. Considering the fact that they're double contested in one of their groups, I'm not so sure how high they can go, but if they can get their POIs free at some point, I have a lot of faith that they can do well with it. Next up, we have Eternal EC. I've got a pretty similar story for Eternal EC. They were playing under the name S2 during Pro League qualifiers. I liked what I saw, and they've been okay throughout scrims. so I'll place them in the same tier. The last team that I have for you all is Evolution. They're again in a similar boat as the past couple teams. They qualified for every PSQ final and had an average placement of 8.5. They're currently 24th in scrims, however they have missed 2 days, so they're more likely closer to 19th-ish, which is why I'm going to place them in the wildcards tier. I'm going to be doing more videos talking about ALGS and doing analysis and stuff like that throughout the season, so if you're interested in competitive Apex, subscribe, and if you liked the video, hit that like button. Check out the description if you guys want to see the full team rosters for every region and the drop spots for each group in North America. Credit to Minus Tempo for putting all this together along with the scrim results. Thank you all for watching and see you next time.